One vice that Israel had to deal with during their wilderness wanderings was grumbling and complaining, speaking wrongly. And in this podcast today, in Leviticus 13, we're going to talk about the results of gossip, the results of murmuring, but the joyful ending of the story is that God always leads his people and wants them connected as one body, moving forward into all that God's destined them to be. Welcome to another Portions podcast. I'm Scott Volk, and I'm so thankful that you're here. And today I've got my buddy, Stephen Brickhouse.
Yes,
boop, 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 boop,
it's a joy to be here with you, Scott.
Dude, thank you so much for coming. This is your first time on our podcast, and it blesses me so much that you're here. So just for folks who don't know you, tell me, I want to hear about you, what you're doing, and who you're running with.
Sure. So to summarize it, I guess in the best way possible, am currently in Orlando and living there with my beautiful family. Nice. I have a wife, Cherie, which you know. And then we have our crew, our tribe. We have 6 kids.
Yeah.
Our oldest, Camden, is the daughter, and then 5 amazing sons that God has blessed us with. And so we are there and we are giving our lives for the building of his church in our city.
I love it.
We also run with the Dow family, which are, I know, dear friends of yours in a variety of different capacities.
Yeah.
And so, but we have a crew, a family there that God is knitting our hearts to in day by day processes. So
I love it. And Stephen, for as long as I've known you, which has been a number of years now, you've really served in such an amazing way. And as somebody who, for a certain portion of my life, really ran with somebody that I served kind of in a personal assistant role, sure. It brought me so much joy. Obviously, you're a man who could be doing a number of things on your own with people following your vision, but you've really chosen in this portion of your life to serve even the vision of another, which interestingly has become yours as well. Just for a moment, because we're gonna jump into this portion in Leviticus 13. And I think it has everything to do with a servant heart. How has it been serving the vision of someone else? It might not have been, it's your vision, but someone else birthed a vision. You're coming alongside and you're serving. How has that been for these years?
Sure. So in my younger years, there was a lot of zeal and ambition.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the Lord was gracious with me and really spoke to me and gave me a vision to serve another man's vision. Wow. I remember clearly when the Lord spoke to me in prayer, that our family would run alongside of Mike and Anna Dow and their family. At the time, I had no clue what that meant. I had no grid for how it would work out.
Yeah.
But the Lord has been gracious to reveal those things. And then also, I think it's another big aspect of that, because there's the ability to just grind through and obey God.
Yeah.
But it's actually a joy when there's people who are submitted to the Lord's vision and his leadership, and you have the privilege to serve them.
Dude.
And so the Lord's provided a grace for that, but it's also a joy.
Yeah. So the cool thing when I think about it is, if there's anybody who had a right not to serve others, it was Jesus. Sure. I mean, when you think about it, he could have pulled the God card anytime. Do you know who my Father is? You need to be bowing down to me. But he left all that. He emptied himself and he came and served. And it was really through that serving that something tremendous happened. I'm reminded of a scripture, and then we'll dive into Leviticus 13. Jesus talking to his disciples, he says, the Gentiles lorded over them as benefactors. Not so with you. For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. There's a difference, I'm telling you. In our younger days, sure. Right? There was a desire to be seen with people serving you, because that gives you the appearance of power and authority, which is the exact opposite. Jesus says, no. Sometimes when I teach on servanthood, I draw a triangle because all of us try to climb to the top, right? And then Jesus takes that triangle and he inverts it. He says he didn't come to be served, but to serve. And that serving is really foundational for everything. So bro, it just blesses me. It blesses me to see you and your family prospering in every way. And, we're together today, and the podcast that's going to be going out on Saturday is from Leviticus 12 to 15. But I just want to kind of camp on chapter 13 first.
Sure.
I'm going to read some verses and then I just want to interact with this. This is called the test for leprosy. Now, when you think of leprosy, what do you think of?
Disgusting.
Disgusting
Yes.
Disease. And there's one word that they're supposed to say, right? What's that word?
Unclean.
Unclean. You see a leper, unclean. So check this out. Chapter 13, verse 1. Follow along with us if you're listening or watching. 13:1. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and saying, when a man has on the skin of his body a swelling or a scab, it's already disgusting, I'm sorry, or a bright spot, and it becomes an infection of leprosy on the skin of his body, then he shall be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of his sons the priests. The priest shall look at the mark on the skin of the body, and if the hair in the infection has turned white, and the infection appears to be deeper than the skin of his body, it is an infection of leprosy. When the priest has looked at him, he shall pronounce him unclean. Verse 4, but if the bright spot is white on the skin of his body and it does not appear to be deeper than the skin and the hair on it has not turned white, then the priest shall isolate him who has the infection for 7 days. One more verse, bro. Verse 5. The priest shall look at him on the 7th day. And if in his eyes the infection has not changed and the infection has not spread on the skin, then the priest shall isolate him for 7 more days. There's something about leprosy that cannot coexist with people who are clean. I feel that we really need to hone in to this, because I would say, just at first glance, if somebody's leprous, they have no control over that. Yeah. It almost seems harsh to me that you would tell somebody who is sick, you get out of here for 7 days.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That would be like somebody coming to us and saying, oh, you have no hair. You can't be part of this church. Well, by the way, since we're on here, let's look at verse 40 of that same chapter, chapter 13:40. Here we go. Now, if a man loses the hair of his head, he is bald. He is clean, baby. But look, the unclean test for leprosy. I'm not a Hebrew scholar, but I'm going to give
Nor
you.
am I.
Nor are we. Yeah, but I'm going to give you this word, and I want to talk about it for a second. The Hebrew word for leprosy is, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, it's sarat. And it's a scaly skin disease that it occurs as a result of gossip and murmuring. So imagine this, you serve in a pastoral role in your community, right?
Yes, sir.
What would happen if somebody showed up on the day that you guys are gathering and they're just full of scaly boils with hair that hasn't turned white? It's like, it's amazing, but why? So let's take this at face value.
Sure.
The leprosy is as a result of murmuring, grumbling, complaining. We're reminded of when Miriam grumbled, and we'll look at that scripture in a minute. Yeah. She broke out in leprosy. Why do you think that it's important for such measures to be taken as they were against these leprous folks?
Sure. When I consider the idea of grumbling or gossiping and it causing an infection, one of the one of the greatest gifts to us as believers is the body. It's the family, it's the community. Yeah. And so the consideration of there's an internal issue that's creating this, that's now visible externally. One of the greatest punishments that we see is people being excommunicated from the body. And so I look at this example as like, oh, we're going to set you aside for a short period of time so that we can see that this isn't spreading any further than what we already see at face value. When it says we can look into the eyes, and we can see what's going on. And so the idea from face value, like you're saying, is that we take a short period of time, set someone aside. But I also believe that in a metaphorical sense and how it would apply to our lives today, you take someone out of community, it should break our hearts and cause us to lean into the Lord and have a repentant heart to him and to our brothers. Yeah. Because if we have tasted a real community, a real family, and being a part of that, cutting us away from it should be agonizing. It should create a great deal in sense of absence. Yeah. Because the people God has given us, we're no longer with them. Yeah. So as I consider those verses, the thoughts that rise up in my heart are, man, what a painful situation, because gossiping has now created a situation where you can no longer be with the people that God's given you.
Dude, it's kind of a mind-boggling thing. If this were to happen today, I wonder how many of us would be walking around with clean skin, because it just seems the looseness of our tongues seem to be creating division everywhere. That's what gossip, it separates. It separates. So here the Lord is saying, and this is, the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron saying, this is what you're supposed to do. Right. If somebody is separating through what they're saying, they themselves are to be separated. They're supposed to be pulled out. I don't have any kind of written definition for gossip, but what would you say gossip is?
Sure. If I had to give a definition for it, I would say having conversations or talking about individuals or a group of individuals in a way that's harmful or negative, and potentially even if those things are true. So whether it be true or absolutely false, how we handle ourselves. Yeah. We see, obviously, in the scriptures, there's a specific way to go about things. If we have hurts, or if we feel like we've been betrayed, or if we have an ought against our brother, there's a specific pattern that's given. Yeah. Gossip, slander, these types of things, they're not included in the actual pattern that he gives us. Right. So he says, go to your brother. Right. If you know that your brother has something against you, go to your brother. Yeah. So this would be the antithesis of it. Right. We have conversations, side conversations. I think the way it looks in our day, and the definition of it in a practical way to look at it would be these side conversations that we have. I think a lot of times, even as Christians, we spiritualize it. We can spiritualize gossip. Oh, did you hear what so-and-so is going through? We need to be praying for them. Yeah. But it just generates a way, or not generates, but creates a way for us to have conversations about people where we're actually talking about them more than we're praying for them.
I'm actually getting slightly convicted as you are giving me your definition of gossip, because I fully agree with you. I fully agree with you. There's a proverb, but I don't know where it is. It says, where there's no wood, there's no fire. And when the tale-bearing stops, the strife ceases. I wonder how much strife is self-induced strife in our congregations. When there's division, I wonder how much of that is caused by the looseness of the tongue. No wonder God said, listen, when you see this, you cast them out. And it's not because God is so mean, because somebody's got some kind of disease that they have no control over, like right. Our baldness. We're clean, bro. I'm claiming we're clean, right? It's not that. It's not such a mean God. It's, wow, what a caring God, because he doesn't want to see this infection spread to others. I'm reminded, we just alluded to it in Numbers chapter 12. I'll just read it really quickly. The murmuring of Miriam against Moses. Verse 9 of chapter 12, it says, so the anger of the Lord burned against, it's actually Miriam and Aaron, burned against them, and he departed. But when the cloud had withdrawn from over the tent, behold, Miriam was leprous, as white as snow. As Aaron turned toward Miriam, behold, she was leprous. Oh, we're in leadership positions.
Sure.
It actually hurts me when I know that people are talking against me. And then the easy thing for me to do is to talk against them, telling somebody that so-and-so is talking about me. When I think of murmuring, when I think of the children of Israel, they were given a destiny, right? Into the promised land.
Yes.
A journey that could have taken days, took 40 years because of their grumbling and their complaining. God's like saying, okay, take another lap around Mount Sinai till you stop your whining and you quit your rebelling and you stop your murmuring. We've got just a few minutes, 4 minutes left. The issue of murmuring, grumbling, complaining, if it could keep Israel from their destiny for 40 years, I believe it has a stronghold on us today. And if you've got anything just to close us out with that you feel like could encourage those that are watching, but really encourage us, encourage the people who are watching and listening. And what can we do, bro? How can we see this leprosy wiped out? I think it really starts with those of us who are leading. Anyway.
For sure. Yeah. Two thoughts. When I read these verses, even looking at Numbers 12, going back to verse 4.
Yeah.
It says, suddenly the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, you three come out of the tent of meeting. So the three of them came out. Yeah. Then the Lord confronts them, as you shared. But in verse 9, it says, the anger of the Lord burned against them and he departed. That "and he departed," come on, bro, to me is a very weighty and overwhelming consideration. That their murmuring, grumbling, gossiping, however you want to use those words, caused the Lord to disrupt the moment that was happening, come out of the tent of meeting, confronts them, and he departs.
Wow.
As believers, we must consider the weight of the way we use our words and how it and I want to tread this line very carefully because I want to say it correctly. The Lord's presence, we understand, doesn't leave us.
Right.
But in this situation, he didn't want to be around.
Yeah.
He didn't have a desire to be there anymore.
Yeah.
And so now I consider for us today, the way we choose to use our words has the potential to affect his desire to be with us. Yeah. There's covenantal relationships that I have that are never going to change. My relationship with my wife, for example, we're together forever. We're committed to that. Yeah. But what that doesn't mean is that I can use my words in a specific way, grumbling, complaining, gossiping, talking negatively toward her, about her, and just expect her to desire to be covenanted and close to me. She might be like, oh, I'm covenanted, but I have no desire to be with you. Yeah. And so when you see that, the anger of the Lord burned against them and he departed. Wow. It says, but when the cloud had withdrawn from over the tent, like you said, the cloud is gone now. The only thing that they've cared about, they're following it day and night. They're following his presence. And this disrupts that process.
Wow. So good.
And so I guess my consideration is, if we're a people who are desperate for his presence, then that should cause us to guard our tongues in the way that we're choosing to. used words.
Yeah.
Also, even a verse that I was considering earlier, from the overflow of the heart does our mouth speak.
Right.
So it's not just enough that we bridle our tongue in a moment, should we? Yes. But I believe it's a deeper issue than that. We have to consider that even the leprous conversation and them being a separated people.
Yeah.
His desire, the Lord's desire, is for us to be a people who are unified, who are knit together, who are stones built together, making a household for him.
Yeah.
This isn't possible if we're gossiping, murmuring, complaining, and creating divisions with our words.
Yeah, I love that, bro, so much. And it's really interesting with regard to Miriam in this Numbers 12. It says, if you go to, she was verse 14, the Lord said to Moses, let her be shut up for 7 days outside the camp. This is exactly what we were reading back in Leviticus 13, right? Let her be shut up 7 days outside the camp. Afterward, she may be received again. The received again part is huge, right? Because look, our desire is not to get rid of them forever. Our desire is to see that leprosy gone, that the issue of grumbling and murmuring and complaining be gone. Why? So that we don't have to put up with her in the community again? No, so that she may be received again. So look at this, verse 15. Miriam was shut up outside the camp for 7 days. The people did not move on until Miriam was received again. It's like, if we realize that our tongues affect the forward motion of our communities, we're gonna take what we say seriously, because it's not just me who's getting leprosy, but it's my community, if they're really community, who they're not moving on. They're not going on. They're about to send spies into the land. They're coming to the end of their wilderness journey. They're not moving on until the rest of our body is restored. That's the beauty and the love of God where I think this is concerned. It's like, okay, yeah, cast them out, but that's only to see them restored so that they can proceed with the rest of the community. Any last words, bro?
I think you just summed it up. Yeah, this is the desire of the Lord.
Yeah.
The desire of the Lord is to have a people who are together.
Yeah.
And so whatever it takes for that to be the end goal, he's committed to.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, the journey was 40 years, but it could have been days.
Right.
But he was committed to it because he was desiring to have the entire people there.
So good, dude. So good. I think if I was the Lord, I would have left. Thank God for a God who loves us. And friends, I really want to encourage you. If you feel like you've been a little loose with your tongue, if you feel like you've been grumbling or complaining either about the leaders that the Lord has put in your life or about God himself, if you've been gossiping or speaking evilly of somebody, I just want to encourage you. The Lord's desire is for you to be rejoined to that very community that you've been grumbling and complaining against. Why? So that his glory can be seen. Thank you so much, Stephen, man. It was so great having you today. I love you. And friends, if this podcast has been a blessing to you, I want to encourage you, pass it along, share it, and download our TFI app where you can find all of our podcasts and all the information about our ministry. God bless you.